It's Tuesday, May 5. This is the news on PBCJ. I am Simone Absalom. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton provided an update on COVID-19 on Monday at a virtual press conference at Jamaica House.
Within the last 24 hours, I am pleased to announce that we have had only 2 confirmed positive cases of COVID-19 in Jamaica. So this brings the total to 471 confirmed cases on the island. The 2 new cases are 1 male, ages 12, from St. Catherine, and 1 female, 20, from the parish of Clarendon. Both are contacts of confirmed cases based on the contact tracing. There are 221 confirmed COVID-19 cases related to the workplace cluster in St. Catherine, which constitute, of course, the majority of cases that we have had to date. At this time, there are 35 imported cases, 168 cases that are contacts of a confirmed case, 9 that are local transmission cases, not linked epidemiologically, and 221 are linked to the workplace cluster in St. Catherine, while 38 cases remain under investigation.
There was good news as it relates to the backlog of tests and for those who have recovered from the virus.
Jamaica is now current also with testing, so we no longer have backlog of testing. Some time ago, last week, I had indicated that we had some 600 or thereabout samples. We have been able to cover that backlog. And so some of the concerns that have been raised around late notification of testing or tests that have been done, we should be in a position now to overcome that. 11 more cases have recovered from COVID-19, bringing the total to 49 recoveries. So we're certainly seeing an increased number of recoveries, which is a very positive development.
The island's 12-hour curfew has been extended by Prime Minister Andrew Holness amid a consistent increase in the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the country. As at Tuesday morning, Jamaica has 471 confirmed COVID-19 cases. Mr. Holness made the announcement during a virtual press briefing at Jamaica House.
The national curfew will be extended, commencing at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, May 6, 2020, and ending at 6 a.m. on Wednesday, May 13, 2020. The current curfew orders, of course, come to an end on May 6 at 6 a.m.
In the meantime, Holness says the existing lockdown measures for the bars will remain in effect until the end of the month.
The closure of bars, nightclubs, and other places of amusement, beaches, rivers, waters, and other attractions, those will remain closed until the 31st of May 2020.
For the past few weeks, questions have been swirling about the future of the current school terms and the sitting of staple exams. Minister with responsibility for education, youth and information, Carl Samuda, answered those questions as he updated the nation on Monday. Marlon Samuels gives us the details.
Schools will physically reopen in September, so says Minister with responsibility for education, Carl Samuda. He was speaking at a virtual media briefing at Jamaica House on Monday.
We had planned for schools to physically reopen in June 1. This will not happen, Prime Minister. Online and distance learning will continue until July the 3rd. Schools will not physically reopen until the next school year beginning on September the 7th, 2020. There will be a process of assessment and learning for the first 20 days after school reopens so that we can get a good feel for the level at which each child is, because they have been denied, many of them, an opportunity to experience the classroom environment. So we have to reintegrate them, in a sense.
Schools were closed island-wide on March 12 to stem the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. The government announced plans to teach school syllabuses remotely via online platforms. Mr. Samuda admitted, however, that this has been a challenge.
In addition, approximately 31,000 children have had, unfortunately, to go through this period without being able to be connected through the internet, which was our hope when it first started, that we would be able to connect with these children. We have not been able to connect with approximately 31,000 of them because the facilities are not available in the areas where they live.
The exit profile PEP assessment system has also been adjusted due to the lockdown.
Instead of the PEP in its classical sense, we will use aspects of it to determine how to place the children. We will use grade 4 numeracy and literacy exams done in 2018. Grade 5 performance task, which comprises maths, English, arts, social studies, and sciences, which was done in 2019. We will, in addition, use the results of the grade 6 ability test done in February 2020. And we will use these grades to determine the placement at the secondary level. We recognize that it is not a perfect world anymore. And we recognize that it is not as scientifically based as was the previous year. And we are expecting that it will return to normalcy next year.
Meanwhile, the Caribbean Examination Council, CXC, has proposed moving Caribbean secondary CSEC assessments to late June, July, or September, October, with the administration of the multiple choice paper, either online or paper-based. A final decision on the matter is to be made at the CARICOM Heads of Government meeting later this week. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Marlon Samuels.
It will cost the government $64 million to repatriate the first cohort of 115 returning nationals who will land on home soil on Wednesday. That's the word from Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Kamina Johnson-Smith.
On Wednesday afternoon, by way of TUI Charter, we will welcome home from the United Kingdom 115 Jamaicans, made up of approximately 75 crew members, including the 43 of the Marella, but from 6 other ships owned by the same cruise line. The additional 40 will be comprised of Jamaicans stranded in the UK who have been affected by the global pandemic in different ways and who have been in touch with the High Commission or with the Ministry regarding their particular challenges. This week's arrivals will be supported in their entirety by the Jamaican government. The cost of this will be approximately $64 million. This is a significant cost and one not to be downplayed.
Meanwhile, Minister Johnson-Smith says that some Jamaicans returning home will be asked to pay $20 per day for 14 days of their mandatory quarantine period.
State quarantine, which is mandatory for persons returning, it is the policy at this point in time, is not free to taxpayers. It comes at a negotiated cost of 100 United States dollars per day per person, inclusive of accommodation and 3 meals per day. I know you'll agree that this is a significant cost to bear. I know you will agree that at this time, it is important for our nationals who are experiencing challenges overseas to come home. And this is the compromise now being struck, balancing the rights with, of course, the public health risk. It is in this context that people have been asked within the framework of the Jam COVID app to make a contribution of $20 per day or to make family arrangements in respect of meals.
The Foreign Affairs Minister was speaking Monday at a digital COVID-19 press briefing at Jamaica House. The National Health Fund this week began home delivery of medication to drug Serv patients 65 years and older. Patients in Kingston, St. Thomas, St. Andrew and St. Catherine as well as Manchester were among the first to get their medication delivered at home. NHF initiatives such as the home delivery, quick prescript, scheduled refill and drop-off and pickup services are improving the customer experience and reducing the waiting time for patients in drug Serv pharmacies. Drug Serv patients who are 65 years and older may request home delivery service by texting their name and their drug Serv pharmacy to 876-219-9937 or 876-219-9929, calling NHF at 906-1106 or talk live via web chat on the NHF website page from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on weekdays. NHF continues to contact patients to arrange for home delivery. Senior executives of the University of the West Indies will be donating a percentage of their salaries for the next 3 months towards a student hardship fund. A release from the university says, quote, the aim of the fund is to promote equity of access for all students as well as provide much needed additional counseling services during this time, end quote. Vice-Chancellor Professor Sir Hilary Beckles says the offer of a salary-sourced contribution from the executive leadership to enhance student well-being is another part of the UE Cares project designed to empower any excluded element of the student body. The Independent Commission of Investigations, Indicom head Terence Williams is calling for the legislative reform measures agreed on 5 years ago to take effect. His call comes on the heels of Monday's Judicial Committee ruling of the Privy Council dismissing an appeal brought by Investigations Independent Commission, Indicom. The Privy Council, which considered the consolidated cases Indicom versus Police Federation and Llewellyn versus Albert Dyer, ruled that Indicom, the Commissioner of Indicom and/or Indicom's investigative staff may prosecute offences that arise from Section 33 of the Indicom Act, such as resistance, obstruction, or false statements during the investigation. They could not prosecute or arrest in any offence arising from the incident itself, such as murder or wounding. On Monday, Williams, in acknowledging the Privy Council's ruling, said it was of note that for the first time in about 40 years, the Privy Council, Jamaica's court of last resort, based in London, had reversed a decision of the Jamaican Court of Appeal quashing a conviction. Burial orders can now be done electronically from the Registrar General's Department. The database was launched on Monday. The RGD's Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Manager, Monique Lynn Key, says the electronic burial order is only applicable to deaths in hospitals and health centers. She says the electronic burial order can be delivered to persons via WhatsApp or email, and persons may verify the order online through the Registrar General's Department website. Some funeral home owners have welcomed the decision. Today is Read Across Jamaica Day. The day forms part of activities by the Jamaica Teachers Association, JTA, to celebrate Education Week from May 3 to 9 under the theme Promoting Digital Transformation and Positive Values and Attitudes, Imperatives for Redefining 21st Century Education. The objective of the day is to promote the significance of reading and literacy locally. For the latest financial updates, we now join Gabriel Thompson for the Business Report.
Approximately 400,000 Jamaicans have applied for the government's COVID allocation of resources for employees care program. Speaking Monday at a COVID-19 press briefing, Minister of Finance and the Public Service Dr. Nigel Clark says just about 380,000 or 95% of those applicants have been verified as eligible to receive funds. Of this number, approximately 150,000 applied to be paid via remittance companies, and just about 230,000 requested payment via bank accounts. The finance minister says there have been issues with bank account payments.
We have had, however, with respect to the bank accounts submitted, a large number of bank accounts that have been unable to be verified as actual bank accounts in the name of the applicant. And that challenge with the bank accounts is over 50%. Just to remind applicants that the bank accounts that are submitted with an application for a compassionate grant has to be in the name of the applicant of the compassionate grant. There are many instances where persons have submitted a bank account in their parents' names, in their grandparents' names, or in their child's name, or in their uncle or their aunt. For purposes, money laundering and KYC purposes, the government cannot transfer money to applicant John Brown to the bank account of Wayne Smith. The name on the bank account has to be the same as the name on the application.
He says there is a solution in place.
Now, the good news is that anyone in that category will be notified by text message this week, and a message will say that the bank account you submitted is not a verified bank account. You will have the opportunity to go on the online platform at www.wecare.gov.jm and click on the check the application status, and you'll have the opportunity, once you do that, to update your financial institution information. At that point, you can either re-enter a bank account in the name of the applicant, or you can elect to have the payment be directed to a remittance company of your choice.
Dr. Clark also indicated when payments would be made.
The instructions for those 250,000 have been received by the Accountant General's Department and will be paid in the usual fashion that the government of Jamaica makes electronic payments. The batches will be processed, or the amounts will be processed, or the payments will be processed in batches of 1,000, which will be uploaded to the electronic payment system through the Bank of Jamaica, and payments will be remitted thereafter. Should be with the remittance companies and the bank institutions by Tuesday, going into Wednesday, and available for beneficiaries by the end of this week.
Persons collecting funds from remittance companies will be required to present a government-issued ID along with the application reference number. In Monday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index declined by 2,786 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 76 stocks, of which 31 advanced, 34 declined, and 11 traded firm. The junior market index declined by 11 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for Access Financial Services, Berger Paints Jamaica, and Caribbean Producers Jamaica. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica, Barita Investments, and Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited. Trading firm were AMG Packaging and Paper, Caribbean Cream Limited, and Siboney Group Limited. Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited was the volume leader with 13.8 million units, followed by Maybury Jamaica Equities Limited with 9.7 million units, and Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with over 1 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Monday, May 4 ended trading at $143.92. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $103.95. The pound sterling traded for $179.66 and the euro ended trading at $159.66. Oil prices jumped again on Tuesday on hopes for a recovery in vehicle traffic and fuel demand as some European and Asian countries, along with several U.S. states, began to ease coronavirus lockdown measures. Brent crude futures rose $2.02 to $29.22 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude gained $1.95 to $22.34 a barrel. And that's it for the Business Report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
In regional news, former executive director of the Barbados-based Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, CDEMA, Ronald Jackson, has been appointed to head the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction and Recovery for Building Resilience team in Geneva. Last week, CDEMA announced that Jamaican-born Jackson was leaving his post after 7 years and thanked Jackson for his work. Under his stewardship, the agency has forged relationships and cultivated several strategic partnerships with donors, governments, private sector entities, and non-governmental organizations. Over to news from Guyana. May 6 is the date set for the national recount of the March 2 election results. InfoHub's Alexis Rodney has that story.
The Guyana Elections Commission said it is all set for the much-anticipated recount, which will include a 3-member high-level CARICOM team overlooking the process. The commission met on Sunday where the decision was made. Following another meeting on Monday, the order for the recount was expected to be gazetted. The meeting on Monday was also scheduled for Commission Chair, retired Justice Claudette Singh, to pronounce on a call for live streaming from the opposition PPP, although the Commission has already decided that it will not go in that direction.
In addition to that, she said she wishes to have an audio broadcast as the count proceeds. And that is what she unequivocally said. Notwithstanding that, there is some insistence that people want a visual stream at the place of count. The chairperson in her decision never included that visual stream from the place of count, but there was an insistence. And so we left the meeting with an understanding that she would put into writing her articulation, and we'll meet tomorrow at 9:30 to finalize that remaining aspect of the order.
That was GCOM Commissioner Vincent Alexander. He said the chair's pronouncement on Sunday summarized what was previously resolved. That includes the intermittent broadcast of the process. The chair also expressed the desire to have the ballot boxes viewed and photographed when they are out of the containers so that persons can confirm that there was no tampering with the seals. In the meantime, the commissioner said there are some troubling things emerging from the opposition side. He spoke of the continuous regurgitation of issues already decided on and the attempt by the PPP to use Article 162 of the Constitution and Section 22 of the Representation of the Peoples Act at their convenience.
The question of what we will do in terms of the count continues to be a red herring. And there are those who are still suggesting, notwithstanding the decision, that basically what we should do is a numerical count. But as they say that, they're screaming transparency. And so the question arises. You're screaming transparency. You're using the latitude of 162 and 22 to call for streaming. But then you want to take away that latitude when it comes to how we conduct the count.
Meanwhile, the high-level CARICOM team is awaiting the start of the recount. The team met with GCOM on Saturday for a briefing session as well as a tour of the 10 workstations to be used. GCOM said the CARICOM team will serve as a third party to scrutinize the process. For InfoHub, Alexis Rodney.
In the meantime, Guyana's President David Granger, in an address to the nation Monday, said he will accept the declaration of the results by the Guyana Elections Commission after the recount of ballots.
The Elections Commission has announced the date on which the total national recount of the ballots cast at the 2nd of March 2020 general and regional elections will begin. I welcome the Commission's announcement. The entire nation is awaiting the completion of the recount of the ballots and the declaration of the results by the Elections Commission. I have said repeatedly that I shall accept the declaration of the results by the Elections Commission, which will allow for a democratically elected government to be sworn into office. The general and regional elections were free, fair, and orderly. Subsequent events resulted in the prolongation of the electoral process well beyond the deadline for the declaration of results. That prolongation was occasioned by a delay owing to legal challenges in the Supreme Court of Judicature and the Court of Appeal. I have complied always with the rulings of the court. I have never interfered, intervened, or intruded in the work of the Elections Commission. Its independence is respected, and I have upheld always the Constitution of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, which is the supreme law of the land. I await the declaration of the elections results. I had agreed on 15th of March that a total recount of the ballots from all electoral districts in regions 1 to 10 would take place urgently and in accordance with the Constitution, the applicable law, and the judgment of the court issued by Roxanne George, Chief Justice acting on Wednesday, 11th of March 2020. I had agreed also that a high-level team from the Caribbean community would be allowed to function only within the framework of the Constitution, under the aegis of the Commission and the rulings of the court. CARICOM approved and arranged for a 5-member high-level team to travel to Guyana. The team was expected to observe the recount and submit its report to the chairman or heads of government of the Caribbean community. The team was unable to do so owing to the unresolved legal issues related to the national recount. The courts have since ruled. Guyanese, I am satisfied that the hurdles have been cleared for the Elections Commission to conduct the recount, and that the Commission Secretariat is fully prepared to execute its mandate. I am pleased to learn that the CARICOM high-level team has arrived in Guyana to observe the recount process in response to the Commission's request. The Elections Commission must be allowed to do its work in accordance with the Constitution. I urge all Guyanese to be patient as we await the outcome of the national recount.
And in Trinidad and Tobago, the country's borders will most likely be reopened on a phased basis. That's the word from Chief Medical Officer Dr. Roshan Parasram. We get more in this TTT News report.
In response to a question at Monday's COVID-19 media update about government's approach to preventing the spread of the coronavirus and the reopening of the borders to members of the public.
Phase basis meaning one, nationals versus non-nationals, and possibly even by country, by region, depending on the level of COVID in those particular territories. What you saw before we closed for about 2 weeks is we saw self-quarantine being applied to every single person that came in through the borders. And we expect that that might be a likelihood again if the COVID levels don't drop substantially before we open the borders in different countries of the world.
Dr. Parasram said several measures are being considered to protect members of the public once borders are reopened.
One measure we have, of course, is to use thermal screening at the airports. Another more important measure is to really have home quarantine at least for persons returning for 14 days upon arrival to ensure that we don't have that commingling of a higher risk group with our population, and possibly state quarantine if we think somebody is at very high risk.
Carnival Cruise Line is planning ahead despite the downturn in business since the advent of COVID-19. The cruise line has announced it will begin cruises to several destinations, including Jamaica, in August. The trips from Florida and Texas are the first announced by one of the major cruise lines since the coronavirus pandemic forced a near total pause on the global cruise industry. The State Department began warning against cruise travel on March 8, and the Centers for Disease Control issued a no-sail order on March 14, which was extended and set to expire on July 24. The order prompted several countries, including some in the Caribbean, to reject cruise ships suspected of carrying infected passengers and crew members stranded from ships at sea for weeks. In sports, we begin with the sport of kings, horse racing, as some trainers, owners, jockeys, and grooms still are up in arms regarding Supreme Ventures Racing and Entertainment Limited's decision to reduce the number of race days at Caymanas Park. United Racehorse Trainers Association President Ryan Darby says his organization will continue to appeal that the entity overturn its decision. Darby says talks with officials have proved futile. Racing at Caymanas Park has been suspended since March because of the coronavirus pandemic, and Darby is now calling for the intervention of Prime Minister Andrew Holness and Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark on the matter. And over to cricket. The Windies have moved up to 9th in the International Cricket Council's rankings, gaining 1 place after sitting in 10th for several months. Though there have been a cessation of all cricket globally because of the novel coronavirus pandemic, the ICC revised the rankings to eliminate results from 2016-2017 period. As a result, the reigning 2020 World Champions gained 3 points from the ICC update to move to 229 points, while Afghanistan dropped 5 points to slip 228 points and down to 10th in the rankings. That's the news on PBCJ. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to stay home as much as possible and stay safe.